The first night I arrived, I managed to lose my passport. Call my boss, apologize, tell him I'm not immigrating. I then started calling everyone I know, everyone in New Zealand. You've got to wake up, you've got a job interview in an hour. Feeling so sorry for myself. I was freezing, it was cold. The hardest mental challenge I've ever faced. You don't own a teaspoon. Your family's far away. You still don't know how you're going to get your daughter here. And I was unemployed. I was cleaning the house. I was driving into work. So then I landed a job at a prison. Finally, I answered and I said, "You won't believe how good it is to hear your voice." And I'm like, well, that's quite the opposite I was praying for. And we were told the company had gone into liquidation. On that Wednesday, the 4th of May, Star Wars Day, that day, everything changed. And I called an accountant firm and I said, I want to start a company.
Today we're chatting to Josie Kutsia. Josie, thank you very much for making time available to chat to us. You've had quite the bumpy road, but you finally a permanent resident in New Zealand, and you're really one of the amazing success stories that we would love to hear. So over to you to give us the rundown of what happened in your journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Dom. Nice seeing you again. And nice chatting to you. It's been a while.
Lovely seeing you and chatting to you and seeing you smiling still.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so our story is pretty interesting. It was April 2019 when we actually visited the travel agency in South Africa because we wanted to come and visit my sister, and then we'd been living in New Zealand for about 5 years at that point in time. And I can't remember if something happened, but between the travel agency and the office where we worked, Arista and I decided, no, we're not visiting, we're immigrating. And so we kind of got the ball rolling and started finding out. And at the time, I was a weekend skydiver doing tandems, and it turned out that was I would say, easier way into New Zealand for me personally. And it was also the kind of the dream, getting out of the rat race, and I'm going to become a professional skydiver and just do that for the rest of my life. And so I started talking to people, got a job interview, landed a job with a skydiving company on the South Island.
Beautiful.
And then in all my wisdom, because you hear about the travel agencies and you hear about the thousands of rands people pay, and kind of scared me. So I thought, well, I'll give this visa thing a go and try and apply by myself. Went online, went through the process, and I did the whole application for my visa myself. I missed the little bit at the bottom that said, when you're done, you need to go and get your passport verified. For some reason, I missed that. So a couple of weeks went by, and I decided, no, I'm going to start the application for Arista and Jodine, my daughter and my girlfriend at the time, because their application would be based on mine, obviously.
Yeah.
Or their visas. And then we went through the whole thing, applied for their visas, and then when I was done, I saw, okay, I had to get mine verified. So I went there, got it verified. And then something happened. The company I worked for decided they wanted to send me to Canada for a month because they had a project there, needed me to go there and have a look at it. By that time, we haven't heard back from Immigration New Zealand, so we were heading over I was heading over to Canada. I got there. The first night I arrived, I managed to lose my passport, which my visa application was based on. So that was stress number one. Went to site. It was like in the middle of Canada. It was so far from the embassies where you could get your passport sorted out. So I was kind of stuck there, couldn't get my passport. Sitting on site, sulking 12 hours a day, and then I got an email from Immigration New Zealand. First email said, "Well done, your visa's been approved. Got a visa, you can come and skydive and work as a skydiver in New Zealand." And then shortly after that, I received a letter that said my visa is what was called lower skilled at that point in time, and based on that, they were going to decline the other two applications for Jodine and Arista. Obviously, that just put everything into turmoil. At that point, I said, "No, I'm done. I'm not coming. I'm going to just stay there. I'm just going to call my boss, apologize, tell him I'm not immigrating anymore." The guy on site actually, he spoke to me. He said, "You've done so much. You've gone so far." I think Immigration New Zealand gave us 9 days. It was funny. It wasn't a week or 2 weeks. It was 9 days to respond. And he said, you've got 9 days, give it a go and see what happens. I then started calling everyone I know, everyone in New Zealand. And that's when a friend of ours, Linda, she texted me. I've only met her once. She lives in New Zealand, came to South Africa, met her there, and then she texted me your number. And she said, I know this person, Dom, and give her a WhatsApp, ask if you can talk to her. And you called me back, Dom. I explained my whole situation to you. And just for the record, before I contacted you, I actually emailed a couple of agencies. I've been in New Zealand for 5 years in September this year, and no one's ever emailed me back. So thank you for getting back to me. Still, it's worth mentioning.
Now you tell me. I'm kidding.
Yeah. And then you took the case, and you almost gave me a heart attack. You took a couple of days, obviously, to see what the options were. You came back. You advised on things like maybe it's better that we cancel JEDI'S application and first get me here and take it step by step. So the next stress was then obviously I was on my way. I think at rest I got a visitor's visa for a month.
We managed to get that. Not a decline, but
instead of decline, just a month, which was good. And then the little funny story was, because now we had to get a job for Arista, but the job that she's in, I don't think it's really listed as at that point in time, it wasn't listed. So it was going to be hard finding a job for her. And then I was in Canada one night. I was sitting in my room. We're living in this little camp in the bush where you go to work in the morning. You'll see a black bear next to the road. It's like pretty remote. I was just sitting on Facebook, scrolling, and then this one little thing popped up. Not an ad, just someone had written there. They're looking for structural detailers with experience in the program that she was working on. She was asleep in South Africa. It was morning hours. There was a public holiday that day. And so I'm not allowed. I'm not sure if I was allowed to, but I just kind of sent her CV off to this person from her email because I know she was asleep. And then this person contacted me back, and we was like email back and forth. And I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning in South Africa when I called Arista. I said, "You got to wake up. You've got a job interview in an hour." She was like, "Oh no." So yeah. Long story short, she had a job interview, which was great. The person was a South African person, the recruiter, and Arista actually ended up staying with him for a month. Sold everything we had, and on the 17th of September 2019, we got on a plane, Arista and I. Flew over, and it was 19 September when we arrived in Auckland for the first time ever. Pretty excited. Thought all the stress was gone. It's just smooth sailing from here because now we're in New Zealand. Nothing can stop us. We just had to get Jodine here. And
well, she didn't have. Just to clarify, Arista didn't have a job as yet, right? So she came.
No, she didn't. Yeah, she didn't.
She just came over
on the Yes, that's correct. So we went. We stayed with my sister and then in Auckland, and because I had to work as a skydiver, as a Jedi Master, I had to pass a medical, same that the pilots had to pass, and they had to be approved by the CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority. Turned out then the physician who did my medical wasn't happy with something in my heart at the time, and she had to report it. I had to go to Auckland Heart Clinic. They had to do a stress ECG. Cost me $600, which of course I wasn't earning money, or 6,000 Rand at the time. CAA still wasn't happy. I had to do a 24-hour monitor, another $350. So at that time, I'd spent about 10,000 Rand just trying to get this medical, which obviously caused heaps of stress because I couldn't start working until I had the medical. Eventually, they did conditionally give me a medical so I could start working. So that was all fine and good. But because of what happened on the medical, as a backup, I started with my electrical registration. And that's at that point in time, that was another 16,500 Rand just to get that done. So I'm just mentioning that it's hard if you're not earning. Yeah. So luckily we got that ball rolling. But now, I was going to skydive. I don't want to be an electrician. Then we went to Wellington. We arrived on the Thursday. Sorry, I'm just backtracking a little bit. We arrived on the Thursday, and that next Tuesday, we took a sleeper bus to Wellington for Arista's job interview. At that point in time, I think it started catching me already because, you're so dependent on everyone. You don't have a car. You don't have anything. If you want to get somewhere, we had friends who helped us with a car. But it wasn't the type of vehicle that you could take from Auckland to Wellington. It was short distance car. So we got on a sleeper bus. It's a bus with a little bunk bed. You get on there at 10 o'clock at night or something, travel through the night, try and get a bit of sleep. And then the next morning you wake up, or still awake, but we were in Wellington. And then we got our first New Zealand taxi, 800 Rand to get us around the harbour. Eventually I stopped him. We weren't even at our destination. I just said, no, stop, we'll walk. This is getting ridiculous. So we got out. We were early for Arista's interview, and we ended up sitting in a little coffee shop. And I was feeling so sorry for myself. I was freezing. It was cold, Wellington weather. Just sitting there. I was just drinking coffee because I was afraid that people were going to chase us out for sitting there so long. So, every couple of minutes I'd go and, or like every half an hour, whatever, I'd go and buy another coffee just in a sip on it. Arista changed for her interview in a filling station garage. I would say like a BP or an engine.
As you do.
It was, I can't remember, not engine. Yeah, and she did the interview. It went pretty well, and she was successful. She got the job. Then had to go back to South Africa. So after a month here, she flew back. I flew to the South Island. I was going to start working as a skydiver. It was exciting. It was bittersweet. I was sad. My daughter, I hadn't seen her in months. Arista was going back to South Africa. I was heading into the unknown. I arrived in Fox Glacier a couple of days later, with all the bus taking stuff. And there I was. I think Fox Glacier has a population of 128 in the wintertime. It was something ridiculous. I was in a strange house. Everything was damp and wet. And it was just funny. But it was surreal still. So it was exciting as well. So I was still coping. And then about a week later, the company I worked for decided to open a new skydiving operation in Twizel on the other side of the mountains. So myself and another one of the new tandem masters that started, and the operation manager, we got sent over there to go and prepare this whole new drop zone operation, like the final bits. I think that's when it started getting me mentally. That was probably the hardest mental challenge I've ever faced. It was really hard because now I was in Twizel, I was all alone. In South Africa, I had I was a senior manager at a company. I had a good, you had your house, you had your cars. Life was good.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I'm sleeping in a staff house on a little single bunk bed. You don't own a teaspoon. You've got your clothes, your skydiving gear. That's what you've got. I go from being a manager to pushing wheelbarrows. We're literally clearing rocks and landing areas. It was a very humbling experience, if that's the right word. And then getting through the days, you'd be on weather holes, your family's far away, you still don't know how you're going to get your daughter here. You've got all these things because even though I'm working, I'm still on a lower skilled visa. And a lot of these things are unknown to us. We were talking so many times at that point in time, me and you, I just had millions of questions.
Yeah, we're working on a plan, but the thing is with these plans, they take time, right? It can't happen immediately because you need to go through the process, yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, and then, I worked, I think that was around about October I started, and then Arista came back in November of 2019 because she started working somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken, late November or something like that. So now she was back in New Zealand. My daughter was still in South Africa, but I was on the South Island. She was on the North Island. But and every now and then I'd come for a job interview, but it was such a, you get on a bus, you travel for a day, sleep over, you fly to Wellington the next day, you do the interview, then you fly back to Queenstown, sleep over, take a bus. That's 3 days without pay, and I did that 2 or 3 times. Never, I was never successful. So in the end, I think Arista got her visa, and then I can't remember the exact details, but I ended up in Wellington on her visa. I then had an open visa, but I was on hers. So
yes, we changed once we could prove the relationship. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
And she was the principal applicant.
Yes, that's correct. So now, once again, mentally, I thought, no, things are going to be great. I'm now with my at that time fiancée, because before she went back, I asked her to marry me. Because I wanted to kind of have some more security.
Seal the deal.
Yeah. So it was a funny story. I actually got up one morning at 5 to call my now father-in-law. I was sitting in a little washing room next to a tumble dryer, called him and asked his permission. Anyways, story for another day. So yeah, then I was in Wellington, open work visa, unemployed. I had to now look for a job. And that was challenge number 700 probably, because now my fiancée has got a successful job. She's doing exactly what she was doing in South Africa for a hugely successful company. And I was unemployed. I was cleaning the house. I was driving it to work because we only had one car. I was trying to find a job. Then a job came up. Sorry, I've just got to say the EWRB, the electrical board, had at that point in time approved my application. But to work as an electrician, I needed to do 500 hours under supervision, and I had to write my regulations exam and do my a practical exam. So then I landed a job at a prison, a new prison that was being built. And I started there, and I was working as a semi-skilled electrician, Tom, for the first time in many years, because I qualified in 2002 as an electrician, and from then I tried to upskill myself. And all of a sudden, 40 years old, I was working as a semi-skilled electrician again. Yeah, it wasn't a good time. It wasn't a good time for me. But 2.5 weeks after I started there, the site closed. I'm not sure about the politics. They closed down the whole construction site, and there I was again, unemployed. It's like, man, what's happening? A good thing was that for some reason, the company I worked for said they're still going to pay me for another month. And I was like, okay, well, it takes some stress off, which is a good thing. And then I said to Arista, I said, you know what? I'm going to target the lift industry because it's similar to what I did years ago in the mines, escalators, conveyor belts. And I started job hunting again. I landed a job. I got an interview with the lift company for service technician. And then while I was there, the amazing branch manager offered me a job as a commissioning engineer. So that was my first time ever working in the lift industry. Started the job as a great company. I still wasn't happy because I still personally missed my life back in South Africa. I don't know why. After all of this, I still wasn't happy. I know Arista was happy. I know Jardine was happy. So I was now in Wellington with Arista, and I had a job with Schindler. I haven't started yet, but I'd landed a job. In that time, we managed to get Jardine on Arista's visa as well. Arista being the principal.
Yeah, to get her over to New Zealand, yeah.
To get her over, yeah, because that was a stressful period. I mean, at one stage, I think I sort of lost my temper a couple of times and had to apologize more often than not. But we managed to get Jardine's visa approved because she started high school that year. She was going to start high school in South Africa, but she hadn't started. And her mom was putting pressure on me to get her here because obviously she needed to start school. So we got Jardine here, and she started school on the same day I started with this new lift company. We both started on the Monday. She arrived a week.
That was just before COVID, from memory.
Yeah.
It was just before COVID, yeah. That we managed
yes, because we started on the Monday, and the next week, Wednesday, we went into lockdown. If I'm not mistaken, yeah. Or I was sent home for lockdown.
Yeah. So one of my first thoughts were, thank goodness Jardine is here, because there's so many other people that are locked out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been on my knees many times because I can't imagine if she had missed that, what I would have done. I would have gone crazy, She got in to like 2.5 weeks later, we went into lockdown. It was like in the nick of time that she got in. So yeah, just back to my story then. Jardine was happy. Arista was happy. I wasn't as happy, I was working for a great company, but I still miss my old life. I would drive to work in the mornings on the motorway, sitting in traffic, and I would pray, but I had this specific prayer that I would say, because the guy I worked for, the last person, owner of the company, was a very hard man. He was a very hard man. And my prayer would be that if he calls me to go back, that'll be a sign, and I'll get on a plane, I'll go back. Because I wanted to. I seriously wanted to go back. And a couple of months later, my appendix acted up. I ended up in hospital, and they removed it. And I stayed there for 6 days. And during those 6 days, that person called me. That previous.
Back in South Africa.
Yeah. He called me for the first time since we left. The last time I saw him was when I said goodbye, the last day, at my job. And that's the first time he called me. So I've been praying. If this guy calls me and says, come back, I'll go back.
It's a
And the
sign.
phone rang, and I was really not in a good headspace because I've been in hospital for a while, not doing, the medication wasn't acting well. And I saw his number and I'm like, finally. I answered and I said, you won't believe how good it is to hear your voice. And we start chatting, and you won't believe he never asked me to come back. He tells me one of the plants that they built for Australia is coming to New Zealand. Would I mind managing that project for him? And I'm like, well, that's quite the opposite I was praying for, that might be a sign that I need to stay here instead of going back. So yeah, came out of hospital, and then I just decided, I need to stay here. I need to make it work. I need to change my headspace, and I need to change what's happening. I couldn't. That was the frustrating part, because you're on a work visa. You've got to do what you do. You can't do anything else. So I stuck around, worked for this company, I think in total for 19 months, when an opportunity came up for a position as a services manager. Now, having been a project manager, that's what I missed. I thought, well, this is a good opportunity. I can become a services manager. I'll still be doing electrical and doing what I know. So yeah, in January of 2022, I started with a new company. Left the lift industry, started with this new company. For about 4 months later, 2nd of May 2022, we walked into the office the morning, and there were all these people around. Everything was locked, and we were told the company had gone into liquidation, I think the Friday night prior. No warning, no nothing. So there I was again. Just January we changed visas, and it's money every time. It's money to get these applications and done. And so it's kind of like, oh man. But I also knew quite a few more people. So the Monday this happened, but by the Monday afternoon, I had another job interview lined up with one of the biggest construction companies in New Zealand. I was going to go there for an interview, and was feeling pretty positive about it.
Yeah, I remember you called me when you heard it, and we were both quite astounded because it was quite a big company that had folded.
Yeah, that's true.
It wasn't a small company. Yeah.
No, they were pretty big.
Yeah, quite a big shock.
Yeah. Anyway, so on that Wednesday, the 4th of May, Star Wars Day, I was driving around the block trying to find a parking to go for this next job interview, and I couldn't find a park, and I was struggling, and eventually, just before I pulled into one, you called. My phone rang. It was you. I was like, "Hi, Dom, how's it doing?" And then after a bit of talk, you said, "Well, congratulations, you guys have got your residence, or it's been approved, your residence visas." And I think that was seriously a turning point for me. There's a lot of small things, but that day, everything changed. Because now all of a sudden you're not bound to your visa. You can do a few more things with your life. And just to backtrack a bit, about a month before that company went belly up, the lift company I worked for started calling me again, because a lot of their commissioning engineers had left at that point in time, and they were like, "Can you please come and help us?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "I can't. I can only do what's on my visa. It's illegal for me to do anything else." And they kept calling. So on the 4th of May, when you called me and you said you've got a residence, I can't remember if I asked you, "Can I start a company?" or whatever. But I went for my job interview. And I was this happy guy doing this interview, and I went downstairs and I called an accountant firm and I said, "I want to start a company. I want to do my own thing." Yep. 2 days later, I had a registered company, not a bank account yet, but a registered company. So,
importantly, you had the account, which is what you need as well. Firstly, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And at that point in time, I contacted the lift company. I said, "Guys, do you still want me to come and help you out?" And they said, "Yeah, please." And so I literally, a week after I heard that we're going into liquidation, I was able to go and work for this lift company. There were some things holding me back because of the liquidation of the other company. I wasn't allowed to go and do other work, but we're still getting paid. Long story short, a couple of weeks later, I started working for the same lift company, but now I was doing it under my company name. And touch wood, it's been just over 2 years. Company's still going strong. We've grown a bit. We're doing more than just commissioning. So yeah, I'm happy.
So you have your own business. You have your own people. You probably, I suppose, what made you unhappy all those times is because you weren't getting where you wanted to get to quick enough or fast enough, right? Because there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's processes in place and there's things that take time. And those things that take time can be quite frustrating at times. But
Yes.
now looking back, I mean, it's more than 2 years ago that you started your own business. You're
Yeah.
obviously flourishing, and so your business is doing really well. You've got a lot of
Yeah.
people working for you as well.
Yeah, no, it's doing really well. I think that was my one of my biggest shortfalls was I wasn't patient. I mean, a lot of times it was, just give it time, and the unknown part, and then being stuck in that position where you're not happy and you can't make the changes, So yeah, I mean, if I were to ever give anyone advice, it would be prepare yourself mentally. You're gonna be in positions for periods of time that you might not always know how long it takes.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
with
it.
yours,
Sorry.
yeah, Josie, it's amazing because the way that I see your situation, and from what I remember about your case, is it was really a case of building blocks. It was a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional in some cases, because you had your daughter that you wanted to bring over. You had complications about that. You had Arista. There was some issues, I think, with regards to Arista's application, as well as the almost decline that you initially got for Arista and Jodine's applications. So it was a case of always building onto those applications to make sure that we eventually got the end goal, which is for you and Arista and Jodine to be together. I think that's the most important, and all legally able to do what you needed to do in the country. And then what is the quickest way to residence? Because in the first instance, on the visa that you applied for, there was absolutely no pathway whatsoever for residence. So from our perspective, we also had to have a look at, and it's probably why it took a few days to get back to you, as to what is the long-term plan. It's not just a short-term plan, because that's pointless. Is there a long-term plan? Because if there isn't, or if there's not a possibility of getting it, you need to know up front, right? Because maybe you'd have other options in Canada, or wherever the case may be. Unfortunately, there were many options. So even with Arista and her job not being on the skill shortage list, we also knew that there's a good possibility that she would be able to get a job offer, because that was, we know what the market is like. So it's always a case of building onto those blocks. And thank you for bearing with us, because it was a long haul to get Arista here, to get Jodine here, to get you all residents. I mentioned it was a bumpy road in the beginning. An additional item that I'd like to bring up, which I really found to be really endearing, is, and I can add it to my resume now, is I'm not just a licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand or a registered migration agent for Australia. I'm also a family planner. So at some stage you emailed me and you said, you're an Arista, thinking of having a baby. What do I think about it? And I thought, wow, this is a chap who's got his head screwed on right, because it does make a huge difference. There's a lot of things to consider. So maybe you want to share the good news now?
Yeah, so initially our plan was just to come over, and a year later go back home, get married, and then because we wanted to get married there and come back, have a baby, because Arista's a bit younger than I am, and so 2022 we went back December. Because of COVID we couldn't. Our plan fell apart, obviously, and so that's when I emailed you. I mean, like, I'm not getting younger, and we'd like to have a baby. Would that be, good or bad? And thank you for the advice at the time. But then 2022, we finally managed to go back home. Oh, this is home now, old home. Get married with all family and friends, and Arista became pregnant shortly afterwards, which was always the plan. And yeah, today we have a strong, healthy, almost 11-month-old baby boy running around, keeping us awake at night.
With a Kiwi passport.
You're on a Kiwi passport, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. Because there can be, a lot of people don't necessarily think about things, but before a person holds resident visa, there can be a whole lot of complications that
Yes.
a baby brings about, and a lot of additional funds. And by that time, I mean, you'd gone through so many visas, and paid so much money towards changing visas and getting to the point where you were able to just be here, and that we were able to actually apply for residence as well. So I think that was a really wise decision, and also everything at the right time, right? So congratulations on your family as well, all for being here, and on your very successful business. It's really a very exciting story, I think. Looking back, it's probably exciting. At the time, it wasn't, but it certainly, I think, builds strength and character in a person.
Yeah, it does. It does. No, well, thank you, Dom. Yeah, after all the trials and tribulations, got to say it's worth it. It's almost been 5 years. You still get your days that you miss the old days, but as with all things, you probably only miss the good, not the bad so much. And yeah, we're all flourishing. Arista's doing well. Jodine started her first year at uni, studying psychology, and yeah, everything's good. We're happy.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much, Josie, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you very much. Take care.